Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jason Levine, Principal Worldwide Evangelist for Adobe. And for the next 27 minutes or so, we're going to be talking to you about the new features that we just released for Premiere Pro CC 2017. So I did this demonstration earlier today, so I'm actually going to go in reverse order for some of you who've returned so you can see some of the things that we didn't get to. And actually, it speaks to what you just saw moments ago, namely Adobe Stock. So again, now we have a couple of new features with regard to Adobe Stock built directly into Premiere Pro. And these were features that users were asking for, and we've built them in. And a lot of this is tied around libraries. You're going to hear me talk about libraries multiple times. So today, now, when you go to your libraries panel, whether inside of Premiere Pro or After Effects, let's first start searching on some content. Now, the way that this happened before is you had your filtered search, but if you wanted to actually see the videos, and by that I mean play them so that you could see what's contained in the videos themselves, we actually sent you to the stock website. Well, now in this new version of Premiere and After Effects, you can see that using the same hover scrub technique that you would use in the media browser, many of you have used this before in Prelude as well, we now have hover scrubbing capabilities so that you can actually see what the video is right from within the application before you then begin to either download the preview or, of course, you can license the full version here. So this is just a really nice addition to be able to see that content right inside the panel and then drag it into your timeline. Now, with regard to becoming a stock contributor, last year at the show, we did a really big push to get people to submit 1080 and 4K content to Adobe Stock to build up our arsenal of content. Earlier today, it was also mentioned, some of you have heard that we have now partnered with Pond 5 as one of our premium content providers. So we now have beautiful, gorgeous HD and 4K content and more of it coming from Pond 5 as part of the Adobe Stock family, which is incredibly exciting. But many of you, I'm sure, shoot all the time. How many of you shoot B-roll? A lot of B-roll, okay. Beautiful scenes, landscapes. Well, as he just mentioned, this is the kind of stuff that people want. And if it's just sitting there doing nothing, you have the ability to possibly monetize that via Adobe Stock. It costs you nothing to be an Adobe Stock contributor, and you can now do it right from the Premiere Pro timeline. So as you're reviewing your B-roll, you can literally be uploading and submitting your content. And we're even going to make it easy for you by adding some machine learning in there to do all of your keyword tagging. So this is a clip that a friend of mine shot in Bali recently. And let's just say that I actually wanted to submit this for possible distribution on Adobe Stock. So from within Premiere Pro, oh, there's my mouse. I'm going to go up to the File menu here and choose Export Media. Goes into our media encoder here. So this is 4K content. Let's go ahead and choose H.264. You can also choose ProRes, and there's several other supported formats. And then under the Publish tab here, you'll see that where we have always had things like YouTube, published directly to Vimeo, Twitter, FTP, added Facebook last year, and Behance, as well as, of course, Adobe Creative Cloud. Now you will see that we have an Adobe Stock. So you can publish directly to Adobe Stock. So very quickly, I'm just going to log in here. All right, so I can publish this. All right. I'm now logged in. It authorizes me. You can see there's my account. And just like that, I can give it a different name if I want to, or I can simply choose Export. And when I do that, now what of course it will do is it will render the file, but it will also simultaneously begin uploading this to your contributor portal in Adobe Stock. All right, it begins uploading the file. Now we may not get all of this uploaded, and it just occurred to me if they're listening backstage, now I'm thinking I know where all of the 10 megabits went before, George. But in any case, it uploads, and when it's done, this is actually going very quickly, you'll see that it tells you can go to your contributor.stock.adobe.com/uploads to review your content. So we're going to go back there in just a little bit. For the moment, let's go ahead and just click away. We'll go back to Premiere, and we'll revisit this link again. So again, the ability to contribute to Adobe Stock. And when the content lands there, I mentioned tagging and machine learning. So we have this thing called Adobe Sensei. Many of you have heard of this, based around machine learning. And what it actually does is it looks at your content, and it automatically, based on what's there, figures out common keywords that you might want to sell this content. So it might come up with beach, sand, tropical, blue sky, blue water, cloudy, surfer, kayak, ocean, wave, and all of that tagging is already done for you. And you can still manually add your own tags and give it additional descriptions, but a lot of that work is done under the hood, and it's done through a process known as Adobe Sensei. So this is a very cool addition to this latest update to Premiere Pro. Now, speaking of latest updates, we've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years, or the last year, I should say, with regard to VR. And last year at the show, we showed you our initial support for VR video. Well, this year we're taking it up a notch by adding initial Ambisonic audio support as well. And on top of that, you also have a whole new series of sequence presets based on a lot of the common formats, both monoscopic and stereoscopic, for building VR content. So you can see here we've got mono and stereo, the content here. Some of this happens to be stereo. And you can see we have presets that also contain the ability to pass that ambisonic audio through. Now, if you choose one of those, and I want to point this out here for those of you watching, and thank you for joining us again on the on the Creative Cloud Facebook page. If you're going to be working with ambisonic audio, you want to make sure that within Premiere Pro's audio prefs that you have multi-channel monomedia default to the audio track option adaptive. This will allow Premiere to understand how that audio needs to be imported, and then subsequently how it also needs to be exported. So on the Mac side, it's going to be Premiere Preferences Audio. On the PC, it'll be Edit Preferences Audio. And this is what I'm talking about right here. Multi-channel monomedia, and we're going to change that to adaptive, and now we're good to go. And now when you bring in your 4-channel ambisonic audio, you'll be able to monitor that. Now, how do you monitor and be able to verify that the positioning and everything is working? Well, for that, we had to add a couple of new effects. So if I go to my track mixer here, on the master, so if I just play this back right now, okay, and let me bring in my audio meters as well. I don't want these keep disappearing in my workspaces. We've got 4 channels of audio here. All right. And again, because this is VR content, I can begin moving this around. We can see that someone's getting in their car, slamming the car door momentarily here. All right, she just slammed the car door. I want to know, is this audio positioned properly? Well, for that, we're going to use a new effect called the Ambisonic Binauralizer, which you'll find under the special menu, Binauralizer Ambisonics. Now, often I will tell people to disable the VR controls, and when we initially released support for VR video, you saw this kind of a window. It was actually shrunken inside the program monitor. Now, the reason for this is because what you can do based on the degrees is you can determine, okay, well, when we're at approximately 110 degrees, if I were to turn my head, the audio should be coming from behind us, right? This is actually looking forward here. And this is, again, slightly, or not entirely behind, kind of behind and slightly to the left or right here. All right? So what you can do with the binauralizer is you can actually set the same position. Let's do 117.8 degrees here. And now what it's going to do, and by the way, you need to be in headphones to verify this. I can play this back. It's approximately correct. And you'll see that it's monitoring in 2 channels. Binaural audio has been around for decades. And the way that they used to capture this, you can still do it actually. Bang & Olufsen used to make these mannequin heads that would have very high sensitivity condenser microphones placed in the ear canals. And the concept is that it actually captures 360 positioning because the microphones are capturing the way that your ears hear sound in 2 speakers. This is actually kind of the concept of working with this binauralizer in Premiere. And you'll see, now you're not going to hear it so dramatically here because we have loudspeakers, but it'll actually kind of change and make it sound like it's coming from, behind your head, in front of your head. You get the idea. So this is solely just for preview, but this is going to give you an idea if your ambisonic audio is captured properly. You'll notice that we also have another effect in here called the Ambisonic Panner, which, whether on the master or at the clip level, will allow you to actually move and reposition that audio in that space. Okay? And you can keyframe that as well. Now again, this is just for preview, so when you go to actually export this, you're going to want to take it off the master. Now one of the things that you also have the option, the ability to do, let's go into this timeline here, is you could also use a new effect that we have called VR projection. And just like the Ambisonic panner, VR projection is going to allow you to keyframe, tilt, roll, let me just pull up my effects controls here, and pan on the video itself. So this is another clip that was created by Camp 4 Collective. It's called The Needles, and you can actually find this on the Jaunt VR site. And using that VR projection effect, let's play this back for you. So here's the original content.
The climbing in the needles mostly follows prominent crack systems.
All right, I'm going to wind this back. Now let's just say that I wanted to start doing a tilt here. I can set a keyframe, scroll over to here, and I'm just going to tilt this way up, all right? Now you might think, well, why would you necessarily want to do that? Well, because again, you still have the ability from within the interface, or if you were in goggles here, to keep
The climbing
moving.
in the needles mostly follows.
But you can see that it's actually moving and keyframing movement along with you. So you can just really kind of change the whole experience. And since this is actually stereoscopic content, this is making me very, very vertigo dizzy right now. You can actually do a lot of really cool things with this. So now what do you want to do if you actually want to get this out? You want to publish this to YouTube and Facebook with your new Ambisonic audio. So once again, directly from the timeline, File, Export, Media. Now you can use the same if it's based around YouTube's standard frame rates, which some of the VR cameras, 360 cameras are. You can use the same sort of standard YouTube presets that I typically have used for publishing, 1080p or 4K. But you'll also notice that we have new VR presets for export in both monoscopic and stereoscopic. So this content happens to be over/under at 2880 with Ambisonic audio. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Okay. Down at the bottom here in the Video tab, because of our auto-aware VR, which we introduced earlier this year, it automatically knows that the video is VR, and it automatically knows the frame layout. What's new is that if you go into audio now, again, it automatically knows that there's Ambisonic audio, 4-channel audio inside the timeline. So now it's going to automatically flag this as having Ambisonic audio, and it will publish very seamlessly to YouTube or Facebook. So this is really nice. And this is just the beginning. This is the initial introduction to this Ambisonic audio workflow, but we're really glad to be able to bring this to you as VR continues to be more and more popular and kind of leveraged in all different types of media. All right, so now let's go very briefly, we've got about 17 minutes, into a new addition to Premiere, but something that you may have already experienced in Audition, which is called the Essential Sound Panel. And the Essential Sound Panel, much in the spirit of the Lumetri panel, basically allows you to identify and perform key tasks on audio without actually being an audio mixer, without being an audio engineer. And we do that very efficiently by breaking down audio into 4 specific types: dialogue, music, sound effects, and ambience. So down below, we have a scene from a film, a short film called Siwa Round, which was directed by Oren Brimmer. You can find this on Vimeo. I highly recommend checking this out. This film is hilarious. The characters, some of them you will actually know from other TV shows, including this guy right here. And Pete Holmes is in it. Anybody knows Pete Holmes from HBO? Take a quick listen to this, because this, first of all, exhibits all those audio types. We have dialogue, we have sound effects, we have ambient sound, and we have music. I'm just going to skip ahead to this scene. They're in a bar, and you're going to hear multiple pieces of dialogue where the characters are talking, and the dialogue levels are all over the place. Let's take a quick listen.
Hi, hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
I've been here before, and I've got that here, so.
Okay. So again, this is not mixed. This is not balanced. Everything is just at 0. But you can already hear that just in the dialogue tracks alone, not only are the male and female speaker at different sort of average levels, but even in each piece of speech, they're speaking at different volume levels. So how do we fix that? Or how, more importantly, do we unify all of that? Well, we're going to enter in a little bit of Adobe Sensei again, and a little bit of that machine learning, and we're going to use a simple feature that we have. Well, it's simple to execute. There's a lot of intense math going on under there, which will automatically match the loudness across all of those dialogue clips in one click. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select all of the dialogue, which is on these 4 tracks here. And we'll come up to the Essential Sound panel, and we're going to tell it this is all dialogue. And when I do that, what it does is it now presents a whole series of filters and effects that you would commonly use to process dialogue. Seems simple enough. The first thing that you'll see at the top here is loudness. And under loudness, we have the auto match feature. So again, single clicking of auto match, it automatically determines all the average loudness levels. Now remember, today in broadcast, we're not measuring sound by peak amplitude anymore. We're not using dBFS as our scale. We're using LUFS, loudness units, relative to full scale. It's that average listening level that we care about, that they've been trying to standardize for the last few years. So with a single click, it auto-matched all of the dialogue to a target of minus 23 LUFS, which happens to be the US ITUR BS 1770-3 standard. If you were in the EBU, you could also set that to minus 24. This is totally user configurable, but by default, that's what we're going to normalize to. And now when we wind this back and hit play, again, nothing else has changed, just the dialogue has been evened out. Take a quick listen.
Hi, I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
I've been here before, and I've definitely had it here, so you have it.
By the way, that guy, that's Oren Brimmer. And I'm sorry, I laugh every time I see it. You have to go to his IMDb page and see how he refers to his character in this film, See You Around. He has a specific title for his name, because you never hear his name. Very, very funny. Anyway, could we hear that? Could we hear that all the dialogue was the same level? Now, by the way, the Essential Sound panel offers auto matching for all of the different audio types. So whether you're working with music, and think about that, right? The way that music is mixed and mastered today, in an average film, or even on a vlog, or you're making, a personal video edit. If you're going to be using different types of music, maybe you have, some kind of rock music in the beginning for the intro, and then you have something more mellow for the love scene, and then you have a different kind of music for the end. Well, if you've got rock and mellow and hip hop, the levels are going to be all over the place, right? We've all experienced this. So auto match in one click can make them all the same. So you're starting from the same point before you begin mixing and banding and enveloping and readjusting things manually. Similarly with sound effects, right? So now Carl actually earlier today was showing in After Effects. In fact, are you showing After Effects next? Yeah, so he's going to show you. We have sound effects libraries that are totally royalty free for all of you to leverage as Creative Cloud members. 10,000 sound effects. So here we've got sound effects that were taken from different libraries of bar noise. They're probably different levels, right? They're not all going to be the same. So a single click of auto match and machine learning and Adobe Sensei makes them all the same apparent loudness. So you don't have to tweak them at that level. Then you might begin tweaking EQs and other things. It's quite genius, and the same works for sound effects as well. Now, just taking that one step further, I just want to point out here that you'll notice that we also have a whole other series of effects and filters revealed, including noise reduction, rumble reduction, hum reduction. So if I were to just quickly solo these 4 dialogue tracks, I'm actually going to tell it to reduce the rumble because there was some actual kind of low frequency rumble. They captured this live in a bar. By the way, there's also some ADR in here. So once again, your levels of ADR versus the sort of live captured sound with boom mics, it's going to vary. So this unifies all of that very easily. So let's say I want to reduce rumble or de-hum. And since we're in the US, we'll make that 60 cycles. I can also de-S if we had anything that was sibilant. You don't need to know how to use a de-esser. We're revealing a single slider. Let me go ahead and turn these first two things on. Let's play this back soloed. First, I'll turn it off. Well, I'll keep it on first, and then I'll turn it off, and then I'll turn it back on, and you'll hear what it's done. Take a listen.
Oh, okay. You know, I've only been working here for 5 years, so let me just click on that for you.
Okay. So did you hear how it was clean, and then you heard, and then it was clean? Yes. This is all translating brilliantly over Facebook. Thank you. It's really simple, okay? Now, as an audio engineer myself, I will tell you that I was quite skeptical with the whole concept of a single slider to do anything, right? That'd be like, yes, edit a video with one click. There are apps that do that. I think we make one as well. I sort of want more control than that. Many others do. Not everybody. But this is the key, and this is kind of the cool factor of Essential Sound, which is that what it's actually doing is applying effects non-destructively at the clip level. So if you want manual control, let's go to our effects panel. Let's go ahead and select like this first clip here. And now what you actually see is that it has applied adaptive noise reduction, the FFT filter, and a de-hummer. And when I click on to edit something like adaptive noise, okay, so is this just more or less noise reduction? No, because once again, there's a lot of machine learning going on here. So when I adjust the slider, what you're looking at in that noise reduction effect, the adaptive noise reduction, is that it's actually reconfiguring all of the sliders, okay? It's changing. It's not just like more or less, okay? Similarly, if I were to add compression, I don't have enough time to play through all of these things. Compression, and I mean dynamics compression, not video compression, right? Compressing a voice so that it's even. Setting a compressor is very difficult if you really don't know what you're doing, all right? It's very easy to do it incorrectly. It's very easy to amplify. Compressors are amplifiers. So a lot of times I've seen it happen. Someone throws a compressor on something, and then they raise the output gain, and they're like, yeah, it's totally compressed, but it's still peaking above 0 because they didn't actually do anything. So that single slider takes care of it for you. But where the machine learning really shines here is with this compressor, because once again, not only is it adjusting, and if you're looking down here at the ratios, it's not only adjusting the ratio, but it's actually adjusting threshold levels. Machine learning is automatically detecting threshold levels. What are threshold levels? The threshold is the point at which compression begins, meaning that if you have dialogue, hi, I'd like an elderberry liqueur. That dialogue has to exceed the threshold before compression can even begin. And that's then related to the ratio. They go hand in hand. And that's then related to the attack and the release time. And if you don't know that, good luck. This does all that work for you. And it does it quite brilliantly. I can honestly tell you, this alone, well, no, because I said auto match. Two things, auto match and this. If you use nothing else, this will change the way you mix audio in your projects. And you'll see that it's got a very simple sort of UI here. More natural, less compressed, more focused, more compressed. It also uses a combination of downward expansion, which acts like a noise gate. So again, typically if you set a compressor improperly, you get some of that. It used to, any radio people in here? Pumping and breathing, right? You know, hi, I like an elderberry liqueur. Like because you're hearing the compressor kick in and out because you have the attack and release times set improperly. This does a downward expander, so it noise gates, so you don't have that problem. The dialogue is focused, and it's clean, and it's even. It's very well done. This whole panel is super well done. Okay? So that's just a little bit on the Essential Sound panel. All right? And just to kind of play back an after version of it for you, I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but this is entirely mixed in Essential Sound. Also, just to point out here with regard to some of the sound effects and ambience, one of the things, in fact, maybe I'll just solo this real briefly. One of the things that I used here, which was so cool, was the ability to add a little bit of room ambience. Why did I do that? Well, this might be hard to hear. I'm going to play this back. If we can crank this up a bit. So here's the original ambient sound effect. And again, it's from the library. But it's too direct, right? Like, you can hear it too clearly. The camera's not on the people back there, right? You're hearing the glass clinking. It sounds fake. It sounds like somebody was using a sound effects library. So what I instead did was I enabled a large room ambience for one. So again, I could start with none. Just to kind of give it a little bit more space. Make it sit more in the background, a bit more echoey. And then I was also able to add a little bit of stereo width to make it even wider. Now, stereo width can be a little dangerous, not going to lie to you, anyone who's ever played with it before. But what stereo width allows you to do, as it widens the ambience, it actually sort of scoops out space for your dialogue to sit right in there, right? It's kind of nice. Now, it's also going to muck about with the phase of your sound effects tracks, so a lot of the things in the center will sometimes go away. What about that? Well, once again, you can go into the stereo expander controls, where here, manually now, you actually have control over the center channel pan as well. So this I recommend use sparingly, but this is very nice. And again, the creative reverbs, again, you've got a couple of presets here, but you also have access to all of the presets that we ship with directly inside the effect itself. So now if I just unsolo this and play everything back.
Hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
I've been here before, and I've definitely had it here, so you have it.
Oh, okay. You know, I've only been working here for 5 years, so let me just check on that for you.
Thank you.
And you hear how the music sounds like it's behind them and echo. It's the same thing. We just added some ambience to make it sound far away. This was all done in Essential Sound. No other mixing, the EQ, everything. It's all done in Essential Sound using presets and single sliders. Super, super cool implementation. All right, and the very last thing that I'm going to show you, which we've talked about a bunch today, this is a huge feature that we brought to Premiere Pro, is something called the Essential Graphics panel. Basically now bringing all the tools you need for graphics creation, titles, and animated text right inside of Premiere Pro. And this feature is also shared with After Effects, where you can create even more advanced templates and bring those into Premiere and even share them via CC libraries. So this title sequence that you're seeing here and the text sort of flying and blurring on, all of this has been done with the Essential Graphics panel. I'm going to switch my workspace to the graphics workspace. And we're going to go into Browse here, where you'll see that first and foremost, we give you a whole series of presets. Now, before I even get to those, I just want to show you how easy it is to actually author these things. So let's go to this clip here, which is an Adobe stock clip. And you may have noticed that we also have a couple of new tools here. Namely, we actually have a type tool now. A type tool as well as a vertical type tool. It's going to look and feel familiar if you've worked in Photoshop and After Effects. Yes, it took us a long time, but now we have it. And because you have the type tool, now you can just type right in the program monitor, right on canvas. So I can call this High Tide. Now when you do that inside Essential Graphics, you'll see that you have some align and transform controls. So I can do a little bit of vertical alignment, a little horizontal alignment. I've got my opacity controls. If I hover over my text, over my fonts, I can wheel mouse over it to find the font that I want. Again, if you've got a magic mouse, this will of course see all of your typekit fonts. You can again adjust sizing right here. You can adjust the weight. Let's go to something like light. And again, I can kind of reposition these. I can adjust the fill, the stroke, and the shadow. Maybe we'll go to a slightly earthier tone here. And maybe we'll add just a little bit of drop shadow on there. Something like this, a little bit of blur, and add a little bit of distance like that. Okay, and now we've basically made a title. But what this actually is this is a layer stack. And you'll see up here that you have the ability to add a new layer. So I can say, okay, well, how about something like a rectangle? So I can grab a rectangle here. I'll just reposition this very quickly. something like that. A little bit bigger. All right, again, I can align and transform this. We can change the stacking order. I want the text to be over top of that. So I just drag and shift the layers. Let's go down to our shape. Let's change the fill color to something blue, like that. And while we're at it, we'll readjust the opacity to something like this. And now we've got a very basic title. Now I can begin to animate this. And if you go into the effects controls, now you'll see you have access to all of the same parameters that you have in Essential Graphics, but you also have your transform abilities. So maybe I want to fly on that blue background just by a simple opacity change, set a keyframe, wind it back, it flies on. Twirl down to the text, transform. Let's just do the same thing here very quickly for the sake of time. Opacity, set a keyframe, wind it back, 0 opacity, and they both fly on. And if we like this now, I can save this as a motion graphics template, because I might want to reuse these in other projects. Not this particular one, because I'm a terrible designer. But but the point is, you can have someone creating these in After Effects too, and making you some really good ones. Now you have the option to save it locally to your Essential Graphics panel in the application, or CC libraries, including shared libraries. So I'm going to call this High T Last. This is my last one of the day. Click OK, and when I go into my CC libraries, there it is, waiting to be dragged in again. All right? You have the ability here to do things like master styles. So if I wanted this to be a master style, I could save this as a master text style. My style. And then if I were to make some kind of change to this, and I was going to reuse this in multiple places, all right, I made an active change to this. It tells me that that style has been modified. I have the option to either revert to the original, sync from master, or push those changes to the new style. So if I push those changes, now those will be reflected in any subsequent use of that same graphic, of that same motion graphics template. Now under Browse, again, we've got lots of presets for you. So we could look at something like, let's say, some of the credits here. These were all created in Premiere. So let's go ahead and drag this one in. This is kind of a traditional movie-style credit roll. Again, play this, and you can see how they're flying in there. If we look over to the Effects Controls panel, you can see the keyframes here, positioning and some opacity, as well as a directional blur applied to the entire layer stack. All done in Premiere, real-time, amazing performance, really simple and easy to recreate. Again, we could go into something like, say, lower thirds. So we've got lots of lower thirds, or these social media ones. And the reason I pull this up is because, remember before we added shapes and we added text? Well, in this one, you see that little sort of circle ring around the share button there? Yeah, well, you'll notice here you can add text, shapes, or the freeform tool, or stuff from a file. What stuff can you bring in? JPEGs, Illustrator files, or video with audio. So you can import all of those elements into your motion graphics template and save it to your CC libraries. And here you can see that this is actually a video clip, okay, as part of the motion graphics template. But where this gets really powerful and cool are in the After Effects ones, and Carl's going to show this to you. So let's go to our news package here, and let's drag one of these lower thirds in. So I'm going to drag this in. Now, first of all, if I don't have the font that it needs, it says, hey, do you want to sync this font from Typekit? You've seen this in Photoshop, you've seen it in Illustrator, you've seen it in InDesign. We do it now in Premiere, and you don't have to shut the application down anymore. It goes and gets the font for you, synchronizes it, and you just keep working. So I can go ahead and do that, and based on your connectivity, it may take a few moments to do that. All right? Let's turn off all these other layers here. And now when I go into edit this, now you're seeing different fields. And again, Carl's going to go into more detail with this, that you can edit, including text fields. So we'll call this Jason Levine. Secondary title can be Last Prezzo of the Day. And then you have comments, things like, okay, all the next parameters related to the globe animation. So we've got this globe right here. And you can adjust rotation speed, on the globe. It's taking just a second to kick in right here. You can adjust the longitude offset. You can adjust the latitude offset. You can adjust the angle offset. And then you've got all your styling controls. So anything that you can do on the After Effects side, including using expressions. Now, not all parameters can be used in motion graphics templates. Carl's going to show you how that works and how you can use different effects and filters and expressions. But all of these can be built as a template. They can be saved to CC libraries, and they can be shared with people that you work with and collaborate with. Pretty amazing stuff. So, the Essential Graphics panel to be able to create graphics, and again, really kind of reimagine your graphics workflow inside of Premiere Pro. The Essential Sound panel, bringing powerful mixing capability into the hands of, well, you can be just a video editor who doesn't do audio, mixing directly right inside of Premiere. The ability to publish to stock, VR Ambisonic audio, stock hover scrub previews, and there's even more in Premiere Pro. If you haven't already downloaded the latest release, it is available today. And one last thing, if you want to use those After Effects motion templates, all you need is a version of After Effects installed. Even if it's just a demo that's timed out because you're a single app user, they will still work. You just need a version of AE installed. So coming up now to close out the day, we've got Carl Soleil, who's going to show you After Effects and talk a lot about motion graphics templates. Hope you guys have had a great NAB day one, and we will see you next time. See you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you.